Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Unks in the podcast. My name is AJ. Want to say hello to everyone out there and thank you guys for tuning in. Like I told you guys, we're going to be having special guests with us. We're going to be speaking about so many things. And with Juneteenth here and with 4th of July approaching, we'll be talking about freedom through the eyes of a military spouse, the moves, the memories, the friendships, the strength that it takes to keep a family grounded through it all. And so, guys, I have my friend here, Hare Yarbrough. Hare, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. How are you today?
All right. And so, we're so happy to, have her here on the Two Unks in the podcast. She's just a wonderful person that I have been able to grow to love over the years. And so
Oh, you're
we're
so
going to be
kind.
speaking. You're welcome. You're welcome. So we're going to be speaking, today, and we're going to just be chopping it up, guys. Just having a good time. So again, happy Juneteenth to everybody, and the 4th of July is upcoming. So without further ado, we're just going to talk about, going to ask Harry a couple of questions. So Harry, the first question I have is, what was it like when you first became well, you know what? Before I even ask that question, just tell me a little bit about yourself, and things that you like to do.
Well, let's see. Um, I like people. I like to watch people. I love a good conversation. I love walking, working out, which I took with me all over the world with my husband. I I trained my service animal, which was a really good experience for me. I like reading. I like watching good movies, mostly. FBI movies and SWAT and all
Me
those
too.
type of things. Yes.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I
And
love.
that's really it in a nutshell. Growing up, I drew, I modeled, I did pageants, I was a gymnast. Um, I've done quite a bit. I wrote, I volunteered for our hometown paper called the North Highlands Gazette. I had my own column.
Wow.
When I was in the stationed at Dover Air Force Base. I worked at the BX Exchange there in the shoe department, and I was asked to do the newsletter. So every month I wrote a newsletter for the BX Exchange on
Oh,
base.
wow. See, that's what I'm talking about. Just, hearing those wealth of experiences, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, so I did want to ask you, what was it like, when you first became a military spouse? Did you understand what, military life would be like, or did you kind of learn as you went?
I kind of learned as I went. I just knew I was excited. I was excited because my husband was a wonderful man. He was new in the military himself. So we kind of learned that life together. I enjoyed all the moving. Really didn't know what to expect, but I was open and I kept an open mind to whatever I was going to experience. And I learned quite a bit.
I got you. I got you. So, what would you say was the most surprising thing that you learned, in the beginning about, being a military spouse in the Air Force?
The people that I met, they became family. We always lived on base for the most part, and we were always welcomed. That was very surprising to me because I stayed in one place for 20 years and I knew everybody around me. So when I upped and moved, I found out that in the Air Force, I'm not sure about the other parts of the military because my husband was Air Force, we all became one big family. Whether we knew each other or not, I could go knock on someone's door and say, I need a cup of sugar, and they'd say, okay. And that
Oh,
was very surprising, but it was really a good experience to be able to experience that.
oh yeah. Sounds like close knit, and people care for each
Yes.
other.
Yes. Yep. They really do become your family.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you another question. So, your military spouse, what did your husband do? In the Air Force.
He was a air traffic controller. And the cool thing about that was I didn't like to fly. I was afraid of heights.
Me too.
But
Me too.
yeah, I'm
Been
not too
on
much
flight.
anymore, but he let me help him study for his stripes. And so he would give me the guide and tell me to ask him questions. And he had these two little airplanes, and he would act out everything that I was telling him to act out. And that's how I helped him train. So I learned a lot through him about air traffic control.
Yeah,
He
and that.
um he loved it. He just loved it. He was good at it. He did it for 40 years. 20 in the
Wow.
military and 20 with the DOD. When he retired, he still wanted to be air traffic controller, and
Okay.
so he was training air traffic controllers for 20 years. He was a trainer, and
Wow.
he
Wow.
wasn't a member of the mob, which is the mobility team, which means
Oh, okay.
we didn't get to move around a lot. But like I said, we were in one place for 7 years. And then he went to Korea for a year. He came back, and then he let me pick the follow on base. I wanted Germany. So we moved to Germany.
Oh,
And that was that was really a great experience. I think everyone, if you have a chance to live in another country or even to just visit another country to see how other people live,
mm-hmm.
that is like one of my favorite memories of being a spouse of a military man is
Oh,
being able to travel.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That leads to another question that I was gonna ask you. Just like you say, traveling and things of and then
Hmm.
him being air traffic controller. What
Hmm.
did you learn about, because that's a great deal of responsibility, right? Um,
Yes.
so what did
Yes.
you learn about the responsibility that he carried, and what made you proud of his service?
Well, the responsibility, I one thing I learned real quick was once he was at work, he was at work. He,
Oh,
unless it was life or death, he had to be at work. So I had to become independent really quick. I had to learn how to do things on my own because he could not come home and help me. As far as him, like I said, he loved being an air traffic controller. He lived it. He taught other co-workers of color and not of color how to handle themselves as controllers. I was very proud of him. He moved through the service very, very well with grace. He did it with grace. I always helped him study. When he reenlisted, at one point he did the ceremony in our home. He wanted his boss to come to his home, to our home.
oh, okay.
And Chris was just a little guy then, and I've got pictures of him. And he reenlisted at home. He took it very personal and he wanted it to be private. And so that's what we did. And that's who he was. He was a very private person, but he was very knowledgeable. He earned a degree in aeronautics. Took him a
Okay.
little bit, but he did. And I was just always proud of him as the way he carried himself. He was very calm. Everybody says that's a really high stressful job, but he was very calm. He didn't, his feathers didn't get ruffled. I learned of one at one point he talked a pilot down. A pilot was in trouble,
Oh,
and he literally talked that pilot down safely. So things like that, I learned about him because we didn't know each other very long. I knew him for 3 weeks, and he asked me to marry him.
what?
Yes,
three
sir. So,
three
you know,
weeks?
3 weeks. Yes, sir. And my mom told me I would marry him, and I was like, no, I'm not. I don't even know him. And 3 weeks later, he asked me to marry him, and we were married 42 years.
Well,
And
that's
so it was just a lot of it was learning, as we went, but we took our time, and it was just a wonderful experience. He was from North Carolina. I was from California. So I always
Okay.
teased them and I always tell them, you had to come all the way to California to find you a good wife.
Coast to coast. Coast to coast,
But
baby.
I would follow him anywhere, anywhere. I couldn't go to Korea with him because that was a place where spouses, couldn't go. But I just follow him anywhere.
Gotcha, gotcha. Did his role, that he had as having that so much responsibility, did that change the way that you looked, before you guys met? Did that change the way that you looked at, say sacrifice, discipline, commitment? Did that change when you saw, his sacrifice
For me or him? Did
for
it
you?
change? For me, it
Hmm.
did. I I was raised around a military base. That's how I met him. And so I didn't really understand the depth of it, and he would make a joke sometimes. I'd want to put my, hold his hand and he'd say, well, if they wanted me to have a wife, they would have issued you to me. So that sort of, he was always joking, but it was just there. I mean, it was a big responsibility for me and I was young. I was 20 when I met him. He
Gotcha.
was 7 years older than me.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
so there was a learning curve, but I mean, he was we just had a good time together. We really did. I mean, there was times when we, disagreed, but we always talked through it. The responsibility for me was knowing that he could not come home when I needed him to come home from work. So when we lived on base, I was cutting grass, I was keeping the house, I was cooking, I was working, and I was raising a son. And
Gotcha.
that was a lot of responsibility on one person, but I would like to think I did it with grace.
Right, right, and that's one of the things that I would say as well. To the military, spouses that,
Hmm.
there's so much sacrifice that goes
Yeah.
into supporting the family, to keeping the
Yes.
family strong. What would be your advice, being that you've been there, and looking back through everything, what would be some of your advice to military spouses to help out their, to be there for their spouses because they have such a tremendous responsibility?
Well, I would say, um, like I said, keep an open mind and you learn as you go. Support your husband or your wife, whichever it is that's in the military. Know what they
Yes.
do in the military, and that will help. If you understand their job in the military, that will help you to understand them, and that will help you to move through that type of life and take on the responsibility that you have to take on as a military spouse. And a lot of prayer. Um, I was in a lot. I went to church a lot. I prayed a lot. I had prayer partners, and um, the other air traffic controller wives, we all got together and hung out. We would have barbecues. We supported each other. And I still know them to this day. They're still my friends. So, it's, you just have to do it. You have to look at it with an open mind. And like I said, if you understand what your spouse is doing in the military and why they are doing it, it will make it easier for you to be strong for them because really that's what you're going to have to do. There's going to be times you're going to be tired. You're not going to want to get up. You're not going to want to wash dishes or cook dinner, or do the grocery shopping or take care of the children or the child, but you do it
Right.
anyway because you understand the sacrifice that you have to make as a spouse. And I learned that along the way. And looking back at it, it was really one of the best experiences of my life because I did get to travel and I did get to meet new people and I got to really know who my husband was as a human being and as an
Right.
air traffic controller. He was very wise and calm, and I was always the one running around like my hair was on fire. He was very calm. He'd always say, "Hurry, honey, just take a breath, calm down, it'll be okay."
I got you. I got you. And that's one of the other questions that I wanted to ask you. Um, you were saying that you went to Germany. um,
Yes.
I wanted to, speak about that too, because that in and of itself is something that's, really a big lift, right? Um,
Yes.
being able to move and furniture and school and things like that. What were some of the places that you were stationed, during your husband's military career?
Well, the first place we went was Arizona, Tucson, and he worked at a place out in the desert called Marana Park, which I was never allowed to go to, literally. It, top secret, so I couldn't go.
Wow.
From there, we went to Goldsboro, North Carolina. We stayed there for 7 years. And he went to Korea. And then he came back and we went to Germany. And so when we went to Germany, I'm going to move around a little bit if that's okay.
Oh no, you're fine.
Um, I got to travel. The first thing that I got to do, the air traffic controller wives had a trip planned, a crystal tour. And so I wasn't going to go. And my husband, Danny was like, no, go, go, go. And so I did. And I found myself cruising down the Audubon with a bunch of air traffic controller women, sipping on champagne, listening to classical music with a German guide. And that was the best experience. And I got to
That,
go to Czechoslovakia 3 times, which is now the Czech Republic. My neighbor downstairs, she was Army, so her husband was gone all the time. And she asked me one day, she says, Hurry, how would you like to go to Czechoslovakia? And I was like, no, I don't want to go there. And my husband again, no, go, go, go. She drove her Jeep. We drove from Germany to Czechoslovakia.
the Czechoslovakia.
Yes,
Wow.
sir. We stayed in a flat. The man that owned it, he rented it out during the summer, and he had just filled with beautiful antiques. He had wine in the refrigerator for us, and I mean, I got to see where Shirley Temple Black, where she lived, because she was the ambassador to Czechoslovakia at that time.
Wow.
Um, it
Wow.
was so I went 3 times. I went 3 times, and Danny got to go with me the last time I went. We gathered up all of our neighbors. We rented a big bus, and off we went.
See
And
that's what I'm talking about. Those
yeah,
experiences are experiences that just going from driving from Germany to Czechoslovakia.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is
And
that
we
is
would,
something.
on weekends, when my husband had time, we couldn't speak the language, but because he was the controller, he literally had a map in his head. So we would just decide where we wanted to go, and we would look at the map and we would go. So we would go castle hopping, which meant you went to the mountains and you found castles, and you would follow the trail from one castle to the other, and there were ruins, and it was just something that you don't hear about or see in school. You don't learn about those things in school. You have to literally physically experience them.
Wow.
Chris, he experienced a lot of that with us.
Shout
We
out to
went
Chris.
to the we went to Oktoberfest. Anything that ended in fest, we went to. So it was like the pig fest, the beer fest. It was just, for me, it was like 4 years of vacation. And I worked 1 hour a day and earned good money because I was able to take my work with me because I did physical fitness. So I rented a space in the gym and I had my own class for 4 years. So, and then I could volunteer with Chris's class. So when they went on field trips, I could go with them, which meant I got to travel even more.
Wow.
So that's why I say that if they get a chance, as you're in the military, if you get a chance, go overseas. They'll take care of you. They'll tell you where you can go and where you can't go. You'll get briefed on all that. But it's it's good to see how other people live. And like I said, you don't learn about that in school. You just don't. This is my service dog you hear. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, no, no. Hey, listen. Shout out to all the service dogs. I'm just having a great time. Just just hearing about those experiences, because I would think for myself,
Mhm.
and I guess other people would think as well. Going to unfamiliar places,
It's
um,
scary.
and yeah, it's scary. And how do you keep your mind to where you're open to to friendships. So like what did that support system mean to you when you were able to be come over and you're having all these maybe preconceived notions in your mind
Hmm.
about who I'm going to talk to, my husband's going to be at work, and then you
Right.
finally you meet those people. What should people understand about maybe the bond between military families and having those friendships?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, again, like I said, you keep an open mind with those people because everywhere I went, I had a knock on the door and they were welcoming, my neighbors, or they'd bring us something, or, when we went overseas, you don't have to worry about packing. You pack what you need, and then the military packs everything else. You just separate things for them.
Oh
They'll pack your trash if you're not careful, so
wow.
that part I didn't have to worry about. But it was because I like people, because I am a people person and I watch people. I've always done that my whole life. It wasn't hard for me to adapt to meeting new people. Some were good, some I liked, and some I didn't, and that's normal.
Yeah, that's life.
Is that's how life goes. But you make the best of it, and you learn as you go. Like we said at the very beginning, you learn as you go. My husband took a second job while we were in Germany. He was a bartender at the NCO club. So
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty cool. I'd go hang out with him, whenever I could, and I'll never
Wow.
forget this one night they had country western night, and my hair is short now, but it was even shorter then. I
Okay.
literally had a military buzz going on,
Oh, you got a buzz.
Yes, and so I was walking through the club, and this real big, tall guy with a cowboy hat on said, "Excuse me, sir." And I turned around, I looked at him, and he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am." He asked me to dance, and I don't know how to two step. He taught me how to two step. I mean,
Ah,
just little things like that, I mean, keep an
wow.
open mind to experiences because those experiences are going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And you'll look back on them. And you may not know it when you are experiencing it, but when you look back on it, you'll smile. You'll say, oh, wow, I actually did that. You know, it's
Absolutely.
Chris, my son, he liked moving. He made friends wherever he went. At one point, he, kind of sad to leave friends, but I tried to drill instill in him what was instilled in me, which is keep an open mind, and you're going to learn a lot and meet different types of people. And you don't always get that experience. People in everyday life don't really get that chance to do that.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
um,
He,
we went to church. We prayed a lot. My friends, my lady friends, we'd have coffee. We would help each other out if our husbands were stationed somewhere or had to go to school for 6 months. We were
right.
there to support each other. We were there to say, what do you need today? Do you need me to watch your child? Do you need a ride to work? Or, if one of my friends, her car broke down, I literally helped her get her car back on the road. Her husband was deployed. So little things like that,
So
they
you guys did
seemed,
it together. Stood, look out for
yes,
each other.
exactly. And it just it carried over even when he started working for the DOD because he was at a guard unit in Albemarle, North Carolina, and those that guard unit became our family as well. They would come over. They helped my husband change out our gas pack, air conditioner. I mean, they just showed up.
Right.
You don't have to really ask. They're just there, and in turn you're there for them as well.
And I think that's one of the great things about the armed the armed forces
Hmm.
is that with so much going on, today and things being so polarized, one of the things I love about the military is that you're able to have that camaraderie with people who have different backgrounds, people who don't look like
Yes.
you, and it can erase those preconceived notions that you
Yes.
have when you actually finally get to meet them, and it just gives you a more of a sense of pride
Yes.
and things like that. So I
Yes,
definitely.
and I kind of had a leg up because of where I grew up. I grew up in a neighborhood that had all different types of people. I had neighbors that were from Guam, Canada, Hispanic,
See, that's something.
African American. So we had a mixture. So moving around, it didn't really bother me to see different types of people because that's how I was raised. Now, for other people, it might be a little bit difficult if they don't have the type of background that I had growing up. I went to
Right.
school with all different types of people. They were in my neighborhood. My husband, because he was 7 years older than me, he experienced segregation, and that's something I never experienced. And so, with him being in the military, he adapted to knowing different types of people and getting to know who they are and all of that. For me, it was easy because of how I grew up. But he did it, and he understood the difference, and we might be different, but we're all the same. We
I
all have
love it.
feelings. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. We all, you know, we breathe, we eat. We're the same pretty much,
Right,
you
right. And
know?
we all, and we all, we can be loving one day and cranky another day. That's just us
Yes,
as
sir.
humans, and we just
Yes, and
try to be remember
as a
that.
military spouse, you have to have an outlet.
Right.
And you know, the, my outlet was I always like to walk. I've always been a walker. I've always worked out. Like I said, I was a tumbler, a gymnast, and all of that. And some of the ladies, they didn't know, how to work out or anything. And so I took a job at a spa there. And I was the first black to work at that spa. They literally had to have permission. So
Wow.
things like that I was not used to. Because I was raised in California.
Right. Different.
And yeah, it was very different. But I invited them to my spa, and they would come work out with me, and then we'd walk and, all of that. So we got to share experiences. So, and that's the whole part about being a spouse in the military, whether your wife is in the military or your husband, your son, your daughter, if they're stationed somewhere, go see them. Don't always make them come to you. You go see them, and that way you can see their life. You can see the life they built,
Right.
you know, and the friends they've made
And see,
in the
yeah,
military. Yes.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
and I do have a lot of military. My dad was Navy for a while. Um, on my husband's side, he had Army and Air Force. His brother did two terms of Vietnam.
Oh wow.
So military was in both of our bloods. Chris did military. I wanted to go in the military when I got out of high school back then. My dad was like, no, girls just don't do that, honey.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Yes. So, I kind of got to live vicariously through my husband. I just didn't put the uniform on, but we have functions just to go to, all of that. And it's a good life. It really is. It, I'll say this too, though. It- with anything else, it's not for everybody.
Right, right, right,
I met
right.
people overseas that I met one young lady that never left the base, and I could not I didn't understand that. She just didn't like it. I was the opposite because we lived off base in a village. So, you know, even if I lived on base, I would have gotten off base. So sometimes it's not for everybody, but you have to figure that out for yourself. And then if you keep an open mind, like I said, and you love your spouse and understand why your spouse is doing what your spouse is doing, it will make it easier on you.
Well, hey, you just answered my question that I had. It was what would you tell today's military spouses about keeping a positive mindset? But hey, you just answered that question
Yeah.
for
And
me.
they'll have good days and bad days, just like everybody else. Everybody has good days and everybody has bad days. It's just you just move through it, and try and do it with as much grace and strength as you possibly can, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
Um, So one of the things that I did want to ask one of the final questions. So in this second phase of life, that you have going, what are some of the things that you may be excited about? Some of the things you may be apprehensive about. Some of the things that you may be able to help military spouses out with, transitioning from one phase, to another, because these
Well,
things.
for me, it was hard to get used to not moving. Even though we didn't move a lot, I would get that moving bug and I'd be like, God, I got to move. I need to move somewhere. I want to go somewhere. So transitioning sometimes can be a little bit difficult mentally. But like I
Gotcha,
said, because he was still an air traffic controller and we were still around military.
gotcha,
But transitioning, it can be kind of mentally rough. The military will move your stuff to where you're at, and then that's it. You're just done. You're done with the military. But you try and keep those friendships with you. Stay in touch with those people that you were friends with while they were in the military as well. Stay in touch with them because they're still your military family.
gotcha. Well, as we get ready to close, I just want to bring back, happy Juneteenth,
Yeah.
and the 4th of July is fastly approaching. We want to say, much respect to all of our military families,
Yes.
especially our military spouses. Hurry, we're gonna get out of here. You got the last word. You want to say anything?
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation, and I do also have a lot of respect for our military. They go above and beyond. The spouses don't always get recognized. So my hat's off to all the spouses, whether you're a male spouse or a female spouse. My hat's off to them, because it's work, but it's good work.
It
It's good
is.
work. Yes,
Salute,
sir.
salute to you guys, and guys, you make sure that you like, subscribe, tune in, listen. We're gonna be speaking with Hari, in the future. We're gonna be kind of chiming in on her, because one of the things about the two unks in the podcast is we're the transition between, say, the young generation and the seasoned generation, the generation
Yeah.
that's been around there. So we want to be the gap to help our young people, and as well as our more seasoned people who've been around the block, kind of understand each other, feel each other, work together in order to have
Yes.
a more prosperous life, and just understand
Yeah.
life as we go through it, because
Yeah.
we don't know, they don't know the things that we've been through, but we know the things that they've been through. But with
Right.
technology
Everybody
and
has a
things,
story. Everybody
exactly,
has a story.
absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, guys,
Oh,
next time, and we'll see you later. Peace.
okay. Peace out.